Good morning, Leafly Nation. It is David Downs in San Francisco. It's sunny, it's morning, it's 8:25 a.m. in the Pacific Standard Time. I am your senior editor at Leafly with some big news. What's up, Stephen Boulder? Hope you're staying out of trouble. What's up, Snowtail Organics? Looking forward to seeing you at Regen Night at SF Weekly. Dude! And the big news is Germany is legalizing it. And joining me to talk about the details and is European resident Alex Rogers, head of the International Cannabis Business Conference. It's coming to Berlin on April 15th or April 16th and 17th. Welcome, International Cannabis Business Conference, to this live right now. Man, while Alex jumps in, we got a lot of good stuff on Leafly. Strains for spring cleaning is all spruced up with new picks. Alex Rogers,
What's up? What's
congratulations. How are you,
up?
man?
We are good, brother. How
So
are you
great to
doing?
see you. Oh, I'm feeling so good because I'm waking up to more cannabis freedom in the world. And that is like the good news, man. That is the gospel. We're here to spread the gospel today, right?
We are here to spread the gospel, man. This is probably one of the biggest policy decisions in the history of the world when it comes to ending cannabis prohibition. So it was a huge day yesterday in Germany, and it's on, brother. It's on.
And it's
100
on
years of
right before the
prohibition.
International Cannabis Business Conference, April 16th and 17th in Berlin. That one's gonna about to go bananas, right?
Even a blind hog finds an ear of corn every once in a while, David.
Yeah, right. You're just a truffle hunter. So let's get into the big news right now. Last time it's done, we legalized. That's right, 420 Day Berlin. Thanks everyone. Thanks Wook Sauce for joining us. Thanks to Constance, DJ Namasakar, Dedo Verde, everybody who's following along. All right, start at the top. The big news. Last time we talked, they were thinking about 50 grams, maybe your house, 25 grams in public. That's like an ounce of weed. That's like a sandwich baggie of weed in public, two sandwich baggies back at your house, three plants, and then non-commercial retail. So social clubs, and then a medical system boost. Where did it all land up?
That's where it all ended up, brother. Everything we thought it was going to be happened. So we have the social clubs. They're calling them cultivation associations. You won't be able to smoke in the technically in the social clubs.
Okay.
But yeah, we have 25 grams, just like you say, on the street, 50 in your house, three plants. That's per person per household. That's not just per household. So that's pretty cool. And then we have the cultivation associations, which will start July. But
Crazy.
as of
July
April,
1.
July 1. But as of April 1, we have legal cannabis decriminalized, home grow, seeds and plants are now technically uh, legal, will be legal to be sold in the social clubs. And seeds and plants, to buy weed in the social club, or you have to, or the cultivation association, you have to be a member. But anybody will be able to, non-members will be able to buy plants and seeds in Germany now. So that's a really big deal. A lot of folks know don't know that aspect of it. Also, um, the other big thing is that cannabis is coming off the narcotics list April 1st. And so we can expect medical to get a huge boost because of this also.
Wild.
So we're going to see concurrent programs thriving in Germany.
Um, Snowtail Organics says about the three plants per person. Good thing I live with 1,000 people. And he says they are imagining, but I swear they live with me, officer. That's so rowdy. Yeah, you were talking last time about how going into this, Germany has medical legalization. There are pharmacies that are focusing on cannabis so much that they're pretty much like dispensaries. Good morning, breathe on me. And maybe 20 control a large chunk of the market, and this is going to be a tailwind for them.
Say it again, David.
Um, that
Cut out
maybe that the
there.
sorry, maybe 20 or a handful, not a very large amount of medical dispensaries control a large portion of the medical market, and this will be good for them.
Yeah, and it'll also be good for the folks that don't control a big chunk now, because now the market's going to get 4 times as big within the next 2 to 3 years, we can expect. And also, the pharmacies will just be more apt to carry it. So the ICBC Berlin, for example, will have maybe 100 pharmacies represented there around Germany. So everybody's looking to get in the game, so to speak, and now is it's probably just as big a news for medical marijuana as it is for decriminalization.
I remember hearing from a 70-year-old woman that she first got cannabinoids for migraines in Germany back in the 60s. In a weird way, they've always known about cannabinoids. And yet here we are now with medical being more legalized. And I imagine they got a bunch of indications for medical in Germany. You might need to get a doctor's note or something.
You need a prescription, but now you're going to, so there's about in upwards of 250,000 prescriptions or medical marijuana patients in Germany right now. That would be about tops. We can see it going to about 1 million within the next 2 to 3 years, maybe a little quicker. It's at that exponential stage where the curve will go straight. And because it went up the narcotics list, now it's easier to prescribe for doctors. They're not under as much scrutiny. It's not a narcotic, it's a normal RX product. And also, they don't have to prescribe as often, because if it's a narcotic, I think it's something like every month you have to re-up your prescription. There's a lot of scrutiny on those type of prescriptions, but now it's a
Yeah.
normal RX product. And now I don't know, maybe you can have a prescription once a year, and you'll be covered to go purchase cannabis at the dispensary. And of course, insurance pays for
Wow.
maybe almost half the patients in Germany.
Wow.
So now you're going to have people getting their card and also having actually not to pay for it, to have insurance paid for it, because it is federally marked pharmacopoeia in Germany.
That's beautiful. It's so great to think that people might be getting cannabinoids as a first line treatment for anxiety, depression, spasm, pain, all these things, instead of going straight to a pharmaceutical with potentially a higher risk profile, higher addiction profile, higher drug interaction profile. This is like a 1,000-year-old tested botanical drug substance that we know works. And it's great that it's going to get a little bit more of a lane.
And you're going to start to see the numbers increase it's going to be similar to California numbers here pretty soon. And that's super cool. And one other cool thing that has happened regarding medical cannabis is now the tender. You don't have to tender to be a domestic grower. Okay, we're doing a whole panel on this at the ICBC. Now anybody can grow medical cannabis. I know that sounds a little crazy, but basically they're just testing it at the end. You have to have the right end product. So now the tenders, it's wide open now to grow domestically in Germany under medical auspices, and that's the biggest growing legal market right now, even with social clubs. I think the social or the cultivation associations will, within a year and a half, be right there. But right now, where the market is most nascent is in the medical space.
Yeah, you were saying last time that they were doing a lot of importing of medical cannabis, which is legal now across country lines, and there's countries that have been specializing in growing medical cannabis on the other side of the Atlantic, including places like Israel.
A lot of people are exporting. A lot of countries are exporting into Germany right now. I don't know, 10, 12, from Australia to South Africa to I think even Jamaica, but of course Canada and the Netherlands, Denmark, Portugal. It's all going into Germany. So the domestic tender's gone away, and there'll be more domestic producers. It's going to be it's big business for sure. But at the same time, because the market's growing so quickly, I think it'll take 3 to 5 years to have the domestic production match domestic use, if that ever if that ever happens. And then if that does happen, we'll see there's some interesting UN caveats if the domestic production meets the demand within a respective jurisdiction. So we'll see about that. But regarding medical marijuana and the industry of medical marijuana, which has been the number one market driver in Europe for the last 6, 7 years, is now that number one market driver has now got a 4x coming in the next within the next 2, maximum 3 years, maybe even quicker. So it's a great day for freedom, and it's a great day for people who are doing business in the cannabis space, because a lot of people thought when this law came out that, oh, it's not full license regulation, the investors aren't interested, it's very ambiguous, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of people miss the point what's happening with medical, and I think a lot of people miss the point of where the opportunities lie ancillarily, I don't know if that's a word, for the social club or the cultivation societies also, for many different reasons, none, none, also being they're selling seeds and clones now.
Dude, it reminds me of California in the 90s or the early 2000s, where grow shops are going to see a boost, head shops are going to see a boost, the collective scene's going to be unbridled, and it's kind of a golden era before things really got ratcheted down and licensed up.
You're looking at the next 3 to 5 years as a golden era in Germany and Europe in general. And it's also good that they made the law this way, because it keeps out big business right off the bat. It makes it more mom and pop affair. The business is just more diffuse and just for the average mom and pop. So you're looking basically, because they legalized like they did, it's prolonging consolidation, which every Californian in the space understands.
Yeah.
The detriment of that notion.
Yeah. Spiritually, it sounded like German legislators did not want to do full Monty commercial retail recreational dispensaries. And then spiritually, they wanted to stay away from large outside actors coming in.
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure if that's true, because I think it's because they had the UN dictates, right?
Okay.
Or the EU dictates,
EU,
even more important for them,
EU,
right?
yeah.
So they did everything they could. They couldn't have done the other thing. They could have, but it would have been a shitstorm, and they would have been sued by the EU, and they would have had to deal with it, and it probably would have been harder to pass. Also, I don't know. But spiritually, I'm still surprised that they did the cultivation associations. They didn't just do decrim. They didn't just take it off the narcotics list. They said we're going to have cultivation associations, a kind of a classic harm prevention model in Europe. And so that impressed me, and I didn't think the Germans would ever, as prescient as I've been with regards to public policy in Germany and how it might change. I did not predict that they would do these social clubs, because I thought it was too willy-nilly for the Germans. I thought it was too, it wasn't clear. It was too opaque, and but they did it, David. And when you say spiritually, I think there are some cats in the government that are like, hey, it's like some straight up Rastas in the German government, like, this is healing of the nation. We got to free up the plant and free up this benign magic thing that Jaja has given us. And to my surprise, they did it. And to my even greater surprise, it got passed through the Bundestag, and now Friday the Bundesrat passed it through without mediation.
For those of you that are just joining us, I'm David Downs, senior editor at Leafly in San Francisco. It's 8:39 a.m. I'm chatting with Alex Rogers with the International Cannabis Business Conference over in Europe. He's 10 hours ahead, but often seeing the future. He's got the ICBC coming to Berlin on April 16th and 17th. We're getting the download on German legalization, decriminalization, which just took place. That boils down to 25 grams of weed you can walk around in public with Germany, because it's coming off the narcotics list, 50 grams at your house, 3 plants you can grow at your house per person. So if you're in a flat with a bunch of mates, time to get kicking. Social clubs called cultivation associations, not where you can smoke, but you can go get seeds and plants and hardcore vibes. And then pharmacies, which focus on pot, that are like dispensaries, are going to get a 4x boost maybe take the number of people with prescriptions from 250,000 to 1 million over the next several years. July 1, the social clubs start. April 1, your possessions start. And then it just basically like California in the 90s and the 2000s with a grow shop boost and a head shop boost. Let's widen. Oh, first of all, thank you, Leafly Tim, and thank everyone who's watching and commenting. We see your questions. We'll get to them. One of them was like, how do I open up a social club in Germany? And I would say, go to the ICBC in Berlin and bro down and see where you can get in, where you fit in. I also wanted to shout out Health Minister Karl Lauterbach for getting this over the top.
Big time.
The name almost sounds like loud bag, louder bog. I hope he's got a nice loud bag and he's getting to enjoy it this week after such a big move. But let's widen the lens a little bit. What are the implications for the EU out of this? My understanding is Germany is the economic powerhouse and the population center of Europe. They might throw a lot of weight ethically and spiritually around when they take these steps. Where do you think this is going from here?
This is the glass ceiling, bro. You know, it's been cracked open hard. It wasn't Malta. It wasn't Luxembourg. You know, it wasn't Switzerland. It wasn't Czech Republic. It was Germany. And the EU has to act right now. And it also means that we can lobby the EU. We have a beautiful event. I haven't announced it actually yet. This is the first time publicly I announced it. But we do have an event in Brussels coming up October 24th. And
Okay.
and we will be dealing with the idea of lobbying. We'll have EU Commission members there, and going right to the heart of the beast, David.
Yeah.
And we'll be lobbying the EU for uniform EU cannabis policy harmonization and standardization.
Cool. You've been on the ground in Europe a long time. What's German weed culture like these days? I bet it's cool in some places.
It's interesting when you say German weed culture because they don't have the weed. Traditionally, they haven't had the weed culture, let's say, that Cali has, right? Or even some other countries in Europe, right? But I think that's all changing. I think obviously the North is more progressive and liberal. The South is more conservative, but I lived in the South. One of the biggest reggae festivals in the world is in the southern part of Bavaria on the Chiemsee and the Bavarian Sea, and so the reggae scene's really big there. So Berlin's Berlin, Hamburg is Hamburg. You know, the northern cities of the north. You don't quite have the cannabis culture, but yet you do, because here's the thing: they've never had the space in Europe to be able to cultivate their cannabis culture, no pun intended,
Yeah.
because it's not there. So it's socially, it's so stigmatized, right?
Right.
So you can't in Cali. We're just like, yeah, I smoke weed, dog. What's up? You want to smoke a blunt? Word, 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 word. But in Europe, if you ask someone if they smoke weed, they're always going to say no. And if they say yes, they'll say only on very special occasions, right? And what that means is, do you got a joint? Because I'm ready to light up now, right? And so Europeans, because it's just a different, it's just, I just thought it was a bunch of white people when I moved over here 25 years ago. And boy, was I mistaken. Every valley's different and region and tribal, and it's super interesting. So they have these protection mechanisms, these survival mechanisms that they've built into their culture for thousands of years, right? How do you live so many different cultures so close together and get on? Well, sometimes you don't. So my point is now people are coming out of the proverbial closet. So when it comes to German cannabis culture, now it's going to come more out in the open because it's that they're laying out the red carpet for it. So it's always been there. It's just been underground. I just see that comment right there that came in, and now it's going to have room to breathe.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote, like they thought they could bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds, and now the seeds are planting or are sprouting. Very exciting. And when you widen the lens just one more step, as someone who's running the International Cannabis Business Conference, how will this reverberate beyond Europe? We saw Thailand take steps forward, but now they're retrenching a little. We were just at Barcelona that had every continent there, and we were hearing about a surge in cannabinoid use and interest from South Africa to Australia to all over Latin America. Yeah.
I think it's bigger than Canada, bro. I think that Germany going is just something, it's just something that nobody really expected to happen. Most people didn't expect to happen this early. I always knew it was going to happen. I thought in 2017 when we first came here that this would be about the earliest they would do something like this. So it's the best case scenario for I&I. And, you know, it'll reverberate around Europe, obviously, big time. And, you know, Europe is, you know, it's a very progressive, Europe's a funny mix of conservatism in terms of traditionalism, yet very open and progressive in a classical liberal society. So I think people will just, the light is now shined on Germany, Europe. Everyone's going to see the world's not falling apart. And I just think that I think it could be one of the biggest cannabis policy decisions ever. So we'll see how the world reacts. Like if Thailand regresses, or you know, if you know, because we know regression can happen, and so it's times like this where the work's now just begun, in my opinion. Because if we get complacent or apathetic, then the shit can regress, and we don't want that. Because as long as we have progress, then we're looking at, I don't know, man. You could see things like, you know, I have some predictions. You know, I think India is a very important place to legalize cannabis for various different reasons. And so I see this as being helping affect some of these big BRIC nations like Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
India,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even China. It's out of the, it's really out of the realm of, you know, normal thinking or possibilities. But India and Brazil, like those are two huge nations that aren't so far off with being able to go legal, and as when they had Germany as a as an exemplar, you know, leading the way, then I think it's going to make it much easier for for the activists and the proponents of cannabis policy modernization to move their quest forward.
Yeah. It strikes me that Germany could be a template of what a baby step forward can look like if it goes right, with decriminalizing possession, allowing a little cultivation, allowing people to associate, trying to prevent it from being like a runaway commercial circus. And it also strikes me that this is a good opportunity to remind people to use responsibly, don't bother anybody. Uh, I think when you're in Europe or a big city, you have to be highly social. You're on top of a lot of people. And just in Barcelona, you wanted to play it cool and not create impacts around your cannabis use and cultural experience to keep those vibes right.
That's
So
that's that's important. Like, don't smoke right outside the door of the cannabis club in Spain, that in Barcelona. You know, that's don't blow up the spot.
yeah,
But
and
this,
entrepreneurs need to have scruples too. You can't just cannonball into a market and expect to be accepted if you're making waves and impacts for other people. One thing I've been thinking about lately is how just the smell of cannabis, if you're not the right person, it's a big turnoff to you. I think like on a limbic system level, you still track it as like a threat or a poison. And if you know if you like weed, you smell some good loud in the street, and you're like, who's got the good? But if you're not on the team, you might be like, what's going on around here? There goes the neighborhood. Um, and so
it's just respect. Like if you're smoking a cigarette outside and it's blowing in someone's face, you just be like, hey, could you just, or
not
maybe
do
you
that
move,
up downwind of the
but
park or upwind of the park. Yeah.
be respectful, or just cognizant of what's going on in your surroundings. So I think that's important. Weed's not for everybody, you know, recreationally, and we don't need to put it in anybody's faces. And you know, in places like Berlin, you can already smoke weed outside everywhere, cafes, all, you know. Shit, I smoked weed indoors in a fancy restaurant some years back in Berlin. It's so magical and wide open. So Berlin's Berlin, though. It's when you talk about like doing like in Munich, we'll see how Bavaria, the more conservative region of Germany, reacts to this, because you can bet there will be some arrest, and you can bet it will go to the courts in regards to what Bavaria can do and what they can't with regards to this new federal law. And I'm sure they're probably going to lose in the courts and eventually also have to capitulate.
Yeah, we could get into the details of the final vote, but the point is it passed, and we'll let people get back to their Saturdays. Uh,
It's a
Alex,
done deal, David.
yeah, you just said it. Next to 3 to 5 years, a golden age in Europe for cannabis. We're here with good news this morning, spreading the gospel of cannabis liberalization globally. We're turning the page on the UN single convention from the 60s when America held the world at gunpoint to cannabis prohibition. That old regime is falling away. I hope you get out to the International Cannabis Business Conference in Berlin on April 16th and 17th to figure out how you can tap in. It sounds like 420 in Germany is going to be a new wave this year. Your rights are kicking in on April 1st. Your social clubs start July 11th. And then I'd remind everybody to, if you're enjoying cannabis freedoms like we are in 24 states, and we have 40 medical in the United States and legal in Canada, you can always get your cannabis easier and cheaper when you download the Leafly app, put the products in the basket, hit checkout, and come get it. Alex Rogers, ICBC, final thoughts, man. Really appreciate you.
Hey, man, we're all just pickled think. Everybody come over to Berlin and check out what's going on in a few weeks. And I think a lot of folks will be super stoked how sophisticated the market is and how we're looking at, for better, for worse, it could be a bigger market than the United States because, we're still waiting for the United States to do something federally. And so now Germany's done it. They're the biggest federal jurisdiction in the world by twofold to legalize cannabis federally. So let's go, brother.
Let's go.
Jetzt geht's los.
Prost. Take care.
Prost.
Prost. Have a good Saturday. Love to the family.
Yo, bye-bye. Big up, David.
Okay.
Same to you, bro. Big up.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Big up.